Welcome back to World History AP. So this is our last day for Unit 0. This is going to be Unit 0, Day 6. Some reminders, as always, before we get started, please make sure you have a history notebook out and you're taking notes as you move through the video. And please make sure that you're completing the vocabulary in this video, which is also in the description. Let's go ahead and get started. So our key terms today are going to be the Olmecs, the Moche, Teotihuacan, the Mayan, the Bantu Migration, Arianism, Monophytes, Nubia, Axum, Stateless Societies, Matrilineal, Shamanism, Animism, Ghana, and the Polynesian Migration. Key concepts: civilizations in Africa, Latin America, and Oceania pre-1200 CE. So let's start in Latin America with the Olmecs. Now the Olmecs are called the Olmecs. They're also called the Rubber People, and they are kind of the earliest Latin American civilization. And they kind of began on the coast of the Mexican Gulf in around 1200 BCE. Now the Olmec society was based around these colossal heads, which were possibly rulers, shown in pyramid construction. Power was shown in pyramid construction. And so, again, here's some pictures of those giant Olmec heads that are giant. The problem is we don't know a whole lot about the Olmecs because they didn't leave any written records. We know some through their arts and kind of the influence of their traditions that kind of passed down to some of the other Latin American civilizations, such as the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Moche. But another one of the biggest influences is maize, or corn. And also that Olmecs had very ceremonial centers that the Mayans, the Incas, the Aztecs also have. So again, those are the Olmecs. Now the Olmecs are in kind of central Latin America, kind of in Mexico. Now the Mochica people from roughly 300 to 700 CE. These are going to be in more kind of northern South America. And the Mochita developed techniques for producing cotton textiles, fishing nets. They're going to discover gold, silver, and copper metallurgy, but they're never going to truly kind of go further, say with iron or bronze or steel, which is going to become kind of an issue when the Europeans arrive, and the Europeans have kind of iron and steel swords with guns, and kind of Latin American civilizations never really got above or past kind of Neolithic technology, though they were advanced in their own rights with their own civilizations and own kind of societal structures and even complex social structures and trade routes and everything. Their technology in terms of metallurgy, they never really get past gold, silver, and copper. And again, the Mochica did not use writing systems, which is why we know of them, but we just don't know a lot about them. What we know of them is kind of passed down oral traditions. Teotihuacan, right? Mr. Lers doesn't know how to pronounce anything, right? So, Teotihuacan was built in the highlands of Mexico, and they had a colossal pyramids of the sun and moon, which dominated the skyline of this city. If you look at the map on the right, you can see where we have Teotihuacan. Now, again, this was a city-state, which means that while a city, it was also its own country, or kind of what the modern definition of a country is. and it collapses before 1200 CE. And the cultural traditions it inherited much of the Olmecs culture. Now here is a layout of the city. Now these cities are vastly complex with temples at the center and a very religious kind of polytheistic religion. But they did have trade and they did have complex trading systems and routes. And they would trade as far as North America, right? And as far south as Chile or even modern day Argentina. Now, of course, one of the biggest ones in Central America is going to be the Mayans. And the Mayan civilization is going to last from roughly 300 BCE to about 800 CE. Now, this is going to be in present day southern Mexico and parts of Central America. And again, they're a collection of city-states, so they're all individualized countries and civilizations on their own right, but they're all kind of ruled by the same king. The accomplishments of the Maya are going to be that they're great pyramid builders. They have a very complex calendar system, which they inherited from the Olmecs, which kind of passed down to the Mayans. Their kind of religion or their cosmos is that God created humans out of maize. This is something that we're going to see with other civilizations where that humans are created from the ground, the earth, or their food source. The primary food source of Latin America is going to be maize, so their gods created humans out of maize. Now, the Mayans were unique in their warfare due to that they were only meant to capture slaves and not necessarily capture territory. Right? The Mayans have a deep connection with slaves and human sacrifice, and that goes back well before the Mayans. And again, it's due to their polytheistic religions, where human sacrifice is kind of a cornerstone of their religion. Now, switching gears, moving away from Latin America, let's go ahead and move into the early desert trade in Africa. So early trade in Africa, this is going to be ancient Egypt. They're going to trade up and down the Nile. They're going to have specified desert routes. And of course, these desert routes are possible due to the camel. Now, the camel was actually introduced to Africa by the Romans in 200 CE to patrol desert borders. The traders in northern Africa and the Middle East acquire these camels, and they can use these camels for deep desert trade. And the camel is what really allows the trans-Saharan trade routes to kind of flourish, due to that the camels you can ride on camels, they're beasts of burden, and they can go for long periods of time without water. And of course, they're going to use the trans-Saharan trade routes. Moving on to the Bantu people. Now, the Bantu people are an extremely common ancestor to most of the tribes in Africa. And the Bantu people are going to originate in the region around modern-day Nigeria and Cameroon. And, well, they start to grow food and their population explodes from around 2000 BCE to 700. And when your population gets too big, that means you don't have enough food for everyone, and that causes people to move. Well, the Bantu migration, as it's called, is one of the earliest mass migrations in human history. Now, the population pressures from new technology and new food, from iron technologies, cause a movement south along the southeast and southwest coast of Africa. And of course, as people move further apart and they spend time away from each other, even if you have a common language, those languages are going to differentiate into the about 500 distinct but related languages or tongues in Africa today. The Bantu people are also going to occupy most of sub-Saharan Africa, save for the west. in Africa by about 1000 CE. Now, but food was the issue, so how come people move and still have food? This is going to be the banana, right? The banana is extremely important to African migrations, and especially the Bantu migrations. Uh, Between 300 and 500 CE, Malay or Oceanic or in Malaysia, seafarers reached Africa, and they brought with them pigs, taro, and banana cultivation. And bananas caused a second population explosion and a new migration surge for the Bantu people and the tribes descendant from the Bantu people. Now, this is a map of Bantu migrations. Again, they originate in what is modern day Cameroon and Nigeria, and they travel south along the coastlines. Right, and here's a map of the languages. You can see that all these languages are similar, and they all descend from the original Bantu language. Now, political organization in Africa. Again, Africa is very tribal at this time. And it is defined by its various tribes. There's over 1,000 plus tribes in Africa today, and these tribes are known as stateless societies, meaning they don't have a centralized government, but it's not that they're just ungoverned. These societies are governed through family and kinship groups, right? And the village councils village council consisted of male family heads. It's very family oriented. They have a very shamanistic religion. And if you look at that, shamanistic is also animistic, so it's very similar. Animism, shamanism, they're the same, they're very similar. Now, sex and gender roles. Men undertook heavy labor, herding. Women were responsible for child rearing, domestic chores, and farming. While men did attempt to monopolize public authority, women could be leaders, which is very kind of unique for Africa, because in, of course, Western Europe, and we talked about India and China, these are all very patriarchal systems, where in Africa, women could be in charge, and many societies were even matrilineal, meaning that your family took the name and role and power and through the wife, right, and or the mother. And aristocratic women could become very influential in public affairs, and women merchants were common in Africa, and even during this time and even today, sometimes women form all female military units, and they were more feared than the male military units, which we'll get to in class. So this is a tribal map of Africa. Now what I want you to do is I want you to take this tribal map of Africa, and I want you to pull up a map of Africa, a modern day map of Africa, and I want you to see how different they really are. And we'll get to why these two maps look so different. Now, Christianity. Now, in Africa, right? So, most of Africa was animistic or shamanistic in tribes. And early Christianity will be in North Africa as early as the 1st century CE. Almost as quick as Christianity is created and begins to spread, and it's in Africa, right? Of course, this is going to be due to trade routes, and specifically the sub-Saharan trade routes and the Mediterranean trade routes. And of course, we have this Saint Mark. He's going to convert Egypt, and the spread of Christianity is going to spread up the Nile. And then the Romans introduced the faith to North Africa. And North Africa was home to many different types of Christianity. The two major types of Christianity are going to be Arianism, which believed Jesus was just a guy, similar to the Theravada Buddhism, where they believe Buddha was just a guy. And of course, and then we have the opposite, which is Monophysites Christianity, which is Jesus had one nature and he was divine. And that's going to be similar to Mahayana Buddhism. And the two big Christian kingdoms in Africa during this time are going to be Nubia and Axum. And the first Christian kingdom is going to be in the 4th century CE. And this is when the Nubians of the Kush become Christian. Now, both Nubia and Axum both adopt Monophysites' form of Christianity, meaning that they both believe Jesus was divine, a god. And they shared basic Christian theology and rituals that, European Christianity has. But of course, due to religious syncretism, they're going to take some of their own customs and some of their own culture. And they're going to mix it with Christianity to create kind of their own form of Christianity. Though they were powerful Christian kingdoms, with the spread of Islam through warfare and trade and kind of jihads, which is holy wars, they become isolated from other Christianity or other Christian empires and civilizations, and become isolated and attacked by Islam in Islam's search to convert people to Islam. Now, Ghana is going to be our first sub-Saharan civilization. The Kingdom of Ghana became the most important commercial site in West Africa. They're going to control gold mines, right? And they're going to provide gold, ivory, and slaves. And what they're going to want in return is horses, cloth, and manufactured goods. Now, Ghana is also going to be a Islamic civilization in Africa, and because Islam is spreading at the same time Christianity is spreading, and Islam is going to spread to North and West Africa. Now, while most people, the common people, still practice polytheistic religions, especially outside their own cities and towns, most people remain polytheistic. Right? Only the elites really went to converted to Islam because of the benefits that Islam had. All right, y'all. So that's where we're going to end today. We'll cover Oceanic Polynesia in class. Thank you guys for listening, and we will. If you have any questions, please reach out to me in class. Be sure you finish the vocab throughout the video. Make sure you're taking notes, and also the key terms are down in the description. Thank you.